welcome back to Wheel of the State. This is the state-sanctioned podcast. I'm your host, Andy Coons, and over here to whatever direction that is my good friend Ben DeJong. How you doing, Ben?
Doing good. Hey, it's nice to hear the last name pronounced correctly. So,
DeJong?
ever since our best friend messed it up, I'm like paranoid about
Losing sleep.
Yeah, I'm like, I am not Asian. It's like flashbacks to being a kid where it's like, I'm Mr. DeJong.
So, well, speaking of another one of our good friends, I got this in the mail today from Hector Roos. This is Nolia's Coquito. All right, never had it before, but I'm gonna try it on the show tonight. This all started from somebody was shit talking eggnog on Facebook, and I took offense to that.
And somehow it translated to tequila.
All right, so the whole story,
I love the internet,
is people who love eggnog have never had or don't have any Puerto Rican friends, like hashtag Coquitos. And so I saw that on Facebook and I was just like, fuck this white bitch. And so I screenshot that and tweeted it out and I said, well, I guess I hate Puerto Ricans. And so then Hector Roos chimes in. He goes, no. He's like, you don't understand. You got to try it. It's really good. And
he's not suggesting like tequila in eggnog.
I don't know what Coquito is.
It's got to be just a tequila.
Maybe.
All right. Now I'm really looking forward for you to try it. We need a drum roll and everything.
All right. So anyway, he responded and he's like, no, you got to try it. It's really good. And I as a joke, I was like, well, you're going to have to buy some for me, bro. And he goes, what's your address? And I go, I'll DM it to you. And so I did. I sent it to him in a direct message. He's like, all right. And then today I got this bottle. All right.
Was it shipped in like a case? It's always kind of dangerous when you're shipping like glass bottles.
It was in a cardboard box, but surrounded by packing peanuts, and also in like the most intense bubble wrap I've ever seen. Ooh, did you hear that?
Sounds like it popped the cherry.
Hell yeah. All right. Pouring some of this in here. It's really thick.
Oh, maybe it is.
Creamy.
Yeah, it's a tequila eggnog. Crazy. I'm trying to like envision what that's got to taste like.
Smells like alcohol. All right, here we go. It's good. It's really good. It's not eggnog good, but it's good.
Like on the level of like a Bailey's?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it tequila? Can you taste the tequila?
Dude, I couldn't tell you the difference. This could be fingernail polish remover.
But there's cream in it.
Yeah. It's sweet and it's creamy. So, but yeah, Hector.
So speaking of sweet and creamy, Hector, thank you very much.
Hector, this is a great gift. Thank you so much. I'm going to hang on to this so that me and Ben can share it the next time we're doing a in-person episode. So, all right. So let's get into one of the biggest topics going around the whole of the internet right now, which is Twitter.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a TV episode. Like, did you catch Twitter Files last night?
Yeah.
Did you see how it ended?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of that reality show / Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's like, because I think whether on purpose or not, which I think is probably on purpose.
Yeah.
There's always like these little leaks of like the next episode of the Twitter Files is involving, secret guest, and it's like, it's the FBI.
Oh man. Well, he was hinting at the next Twitter drop or the Twitter Files drop being all about Anthony Fauci, and that's where I'm like, dude, like that's the one we need to fucking see, because like so far everything that has been leaked that's what you want to call it, everything that's been reported on these Twitter files is all stuff that we have already known.
Oh, right.
You know.
And I don't know if there's going to be that many shocking revelations
Mm-hmm.
because it's been so obvious what's been going on. I think a lot of it's just confirmation and to be able to say we told you so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is kind of crazy because if it's happening with Twitter, it's happening
It's happening with
all
Facebook.
across the board.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where I heard this, but they were talking about, the government has had control of the corporate press, probably since the 50s and 60s.
Oh, easily.
They probably took control and started setting the narrative in the guise of protecting us against communism, and they never let go.
Mm-hmm.
So now, because most people are tuning into social media, they use the Patriot Act to do the same thing to social media as they did to the corporate media.
Right.
So it's I'm sure they have these meetings with YouTube and with Facebook, and you just have to assume by now that it's completely widespread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was funny because all the responses that I saw from Twitter Files 1 from lefties was, wow, it was a whole lot of, raising a whole lot of stink for a nothing burger. They're all just downplaying it. And now, I mean, especially with the one that just came out, which was, I don't remember his first name. I think it's Michael Schellenberger.
Yeah.
He uh, put out there that Twitter was actively censoring the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop, everything about Hunter Biden's laptop. But here's the thing, the New York Post story about it was factual. It wasn't an opinion piece. It wasn't
Even at the time.
Yeah. It was completely verified. Like it was a real ass story. Like that was real ass reporting with fucking sources, and like they were able to show receipts. And Twitter hit it because the FBI told them to. They have a back door for some of these intelligence agencies to go in, and it's a one-way conversation. That was one thing that was exposed today too, is that those conversations are just one way, which means the FBI goes to their website and says, we want you to ban this person, or we want you to do this, or they tell them what to do, and they can't respond. They can't go be like, should we really do that? No, it's just they gave us our orders, and they have very specific language that they use in these things. Like, we just want to make sure that this person isn't violating terms of service. But that's their way of saying, like, you need to shut this person down.
Right.
And it's been wild watching it.
Yeah. I mean, not only, with the FBI kind of having that back door, that I kind of envision like a bat phone. Like when it rings, it's the FBI.
Yep.
But at the same time, they were clearly talking to the Biden campaign, and that was a back and forth saying, we want you to look at this person, take down this post, and they would say, we're on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not even just the government, it's political campaigns. And, I think a lot of it probably has to do with the political leanings of those who worked at Facebook or at Twitter.
Yeah.
Because that's probably why they were so receptive. But,
Well,
when it comes from campaigns.
Trump's campaign was using those portals too. He was using those backdoor entrances into Facebook and Twitter and Google and all that stuff too. That was another part of the Twitter files, is that it completely threw the narrative of like all these Dems are have big tech companies in their pockets to censor Republicans, and it's like, no, dude, the fucking Republicans were doing it too.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were doing it as much, or maybe it wasn't as obvious or as glaring.
But like, I think the big takeaway from all that is like, listen, guys, they're not going after specifically Republicans or specifically Democrats. They are going after liberty-minded people. They're going after people who are telling the truth about these fucking politicians' kids, or about their secrets and their fucking flight logs and stuff like that. They're doing it. They're not picking sides. They're picking. They're fighting against an ideology of transparency and freedom and liberty. I feel like I sound like Rush Limbaugh, but you know what I'm saying? Like they're targeting liberty minded people.
Right.
People who want to be honest. And here's another scary thing about Elon Musk is that there's a picture of him and Ghislaine Maxwell floating around the internet, and he did something to the algorithm to where if you posted that picture, it automatically was blurry.
Really?
Yeah. Which if that was a not a big deal. It's just like, oh, we were at the same gala or whatever. I'm a fucking billionaire. I'm gonna find myself around some shitty people.
And
If it
everybody's
was,
going to want to take a picture with me.
yeah, and if that was the case, you know, then why wouldn't he be like, man, I can't believe I was in this picture with this monster. Why would he try to hide that instead of just be
That
like,
makes it worse.
yeah. And so, dude, what the fuck, man? Like, why is he so protective over that picture? That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me.
Well, he's kind of like our free speech Jesus. And I think every time he gets kind of knocked down or, more things come out about, his political views or shady dealings or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, because, he's been taking kind of orders from the government just to be able to get the Starlink program up and operational. So, the government has a backdoor into that program. Otherwise,
And
they
they're
wouldn't have
buddy
let
because
him.
of Tesla.
Right, but they wouldn't have given him the permits and licensing if they didn't have a backdoor channel to use it.
Yeah.
Like that's how the government works. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. I don't remember when it was, but it was like Microsoft back in the day. They were just moving forward but they weren't greasing the wheels at the federal level and bribing politicians, and then all of a sudden they got hauled before Congress saying that they're reaching monopoly status.
Yeah.
Basically, pay up or we're going to fine you and shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
And right after that, their donations to campaigns and just skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the only way to get ahead in the United States is to pay off the government.
Is to be a crony capitalist.
It's a mob.
Yeah.
They have. Yep.
It's scary.
So I mean, yeah. Again, kind of going back to the black pilled idea of hurry up and like collapse so we can rebuild because there's no coming back.
So here's one thing that makes me nervous about that, because I'm like, do we have the mechanisms in place to where, and whether it's the continental United States, or if it's just New Hampshire or maybe a few pocket areas all over the United States, do we have the infrastructure and the framework to set up like autonomous zones? Because if the government falls apart, like people don't comprehend like anarchy, and what little they do is all negative. They think of the Mad Max movies when they think of anarchy. And so, like, when the government collapses, how do we set ourselves up so that way, if it's not a whole country, at least a region where we can say, we have borders, you are not allowed in here,
Yeah, it's going to have to be by state because the states have the infrastructure to operate autonomously outside of the federal government. We have the court systems, we have the Congress, the Senate, the governor. Like it would basically have to put together some type of a currency, ideally backed by something real like gold or silver. I don't think any states really outside of Texas have that on hand.
Yeah.
But I think it's totally possible to do it at a state level. Now, there's going to be potential of some states saying, like California, Northern California has tried multiple times to secede from California because they're not represented. And so, they could pull off and actually break California up. I talked with some libertarians, was it yesterday? Yeah, about the fact that ballot harvesting is kind of hardwired into our state constitution now, which
Hmm.
basically means we're going to be run by Democrats for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So, what happens if things fall apart and the UP says, fuck you, we're out?
I'm
Because
buying
they're
your snow boots.
mostly conservatives up there,
Hmm.
and they're not going to be represented by Lansing. So that's a distinct possibility. I think there's been talk about a succession from UP before. I've heard rumors. I don't know how far it's got, but clearly they're not represented. So yeah, I think it could very well be a shit show. I think it depends on what's the catalyst.
Hmm.
Massive hyperinflation because the dollar collapses.
Civil War.
Um, it really, again, my thesis on that is the longer we wait to have the collapse, the bigger the chance of potential war, because the fighting factions will only continue to grow more and more
Yeah. Okay.
angry.
So that's something I was thinking of on my way to work the other day, because you and I had spoken before, and you're like, I just don't see somebody being willing to pick up a gun and shoot their neighbor, over abortion or over, trans people or something like that. And
Right
something that
now.
hit me is like, well, wait a second. It's not gonna start between you and your neighbor. It's gonna start between Antifa and a Proud Boy, you know, and then those are the two sides that are gonna suck everybody else in. They're gonna get everybody else involved in that war. You know, it's gonna be the people who are ready to fight and commit acts of violence who spark the war, and then everybody else just gets sucked in.
Yeah, and I think that'll be. I mean, we've already kind of seen it in certain hot spots in
Mm-hmm.
different states. I mean, Portland's a great example. LA, New York, these liberal cities where there's not a lot of dissenting voices,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be easily drowned out,
Right.
even if it comes down to violence. I don't see we're heading into a death spiral as a country. We're overextended. I mean, you just look at the parallels between us and the Roman Empire, or not maybe not as much as the British Empire prior to World War One, because they really were the dominant before World War One.
Mm-hmm.
But that they got so indebted to us for supplies that we basically took over. I mean, World War II cemented everything into what it is today. But I mean, we've talked about the BRICS nations versus the G7, and if they come up with another currency that is a basket of currencies that is backed by something real, everybody's going to flood to that. And it's crazy to read some of the articles about like the Chinese, the Russian, the Indian. Their central banks have been buying up gold like it's going out of business. And so to have their stockpiles, and I don't think we've actually had a true audit of our kind of Fort Knox to see what our gold reserves actually are. We claim that they are, whatever it is, but is it really there? Like, I don't trust the government.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say no. That's just what's going to be the future, is these fiat currencies are going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just listened to Judge Andrew Napolitano on the way home from work today, and he had, you know, um, General McGregor on, and they were talking about, there's it's so close. I mean, we have 47,000, I think he said, troops in Poland right on the border that, if Biden said tomorrow they were going to, walk into Ukraine, they could walk into Ukraine. And it's kind of the idea is they would use the same pretext that they did for the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
It's a peacekeeping mission. We're just there to observe. We're just there to train it's like
We
47,000
promise we won't kill
heavily
hundreds of
armed.
thousands of people.
Right. And then as soon as some of them die, then it's justification for sending in more troops. And we are so close to that happening.
Mhm.
And World War III would be, if China gets pulled in, if the nuclear option is used, it's just a scary fucking world.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that could just overnight our way of life will be forever changed
Yeah.
in the blink of an eye. And it's a crazy time to be alive. It really is. Every day I'm just like, what is it today? So like, the Twitter files and what's happening on Twitter and Elon Musk, and it's like, yeah, it's if this was in the 90s or even 2018, and this would be the biggest story in the world. But considering everything else going on, it's like, are we really going to haggle over free speech?
Mhm.
As important as that is, especially considering everything else that's going on, but it's like, holy crap. At what point is it just a diversion
Mhm.
from what else is happening? There's
Yeah, I
always
feel
that,
bad
like,
about being super into this Twitter thing.
it's completely fascinating,
Mhm.
and there was this idea that Elon Musk was going to save free speech, and maybe that still might happen. And I mean, that's the bedrock of our country. But if at the same time our dollar collapses or we invade Russia, like, free speech is not a big deal anymore.
Yeah.
So, but that's close to home. We haven't really felt the pain of uh a war in Europe,
Yeah.
but it could change overnight. So as far as, going back to the Twitter files, so I haven't read any of them outside of just listening to people's, like, Jimmy Dore
Mhm.
and Dave Smith and other people of, like, they've read or they've dissected some of them. So I've picked up some things. Is there anything that really jumped out at you that you were like, holy shit, I didn't realize it was that bad?
Not really. I mean, because like I said, so far everything that's coming out is everything we already knew. We just finally got rock solid confirmation. And
Do you think, like, is there going to be anything that comes of it? Like, in my opinion, that's a clear violation of free speech when the government or government representatives say, take something down, don't post this, block that person. That's censoring speech directly. That's not just, hey, could you check out this guy's profile? It's a little off. You can get away with maybe that ambiguity, but if if the FBI is like, block this person, take that down, don't post anything, like, to me that's black and white. But like I don't see anybody stepping up and, like, taking it to what the taking it to Congress. I mean, they're a
I
bunch of jokers.
I
Like,
think this is going to do more to change behavior more than policy. You know, like I think that this is undeniable, you know, and I think the people who are out there still denying it, like, oh, this is a nothing burger. Um, I
I don't think the left is denying it. I think that they're applauding it. I think
some
that they
some of them are.
want
Well,
they
like,
want the censorship.
well, yeah, yeah, but I think like I think right now it is undeniable. Like there's the evidence. There's the evidence, right? Man, that shit's strong. Did you hear that?
I have 10
Here's the
fingers.
evidence. It's not strong. I am a lightweight. That's the truth. So, shit. What was I saying? Um,
on like, what is the government? I mean, yeah, they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar,
mhm.
but are they going to say, "Oops, our bad," or are they going to just
No,
blow it off?
no.
Are
I
they going to stop doing it with other companies for fear of being caught? Like, this is such a clear violation of free speech,
yeah.
which is literally right there in our founding documents.
hmm
It's
Well,
black and white.
I like honestly with the way that the messages came through from the FBI, I think they kind of covered their ass for with how they worded things, because it was never I need you to take this person down. It was um hey, we think this person violated your terms of service, you know, which is stupid and crazy like at its face, that the fucking FBI are just palling around with you being like, hey man, we're trying to help you grow your business. Like they're just being good Samaritans about it. That's fucking bullshit, you know? And so it's like, I think it's unspoken. Like whenever they say, hey, we think this person violated your terms of service, which why the fuck would we
Or
care?
we think this is a Russian plant or
Yeah.
a Russian fake story.
But they never said you have to silence this person. You have to ban this person. They never said anything like that, which I think it comes down to the wording, because I think if that goes to a court of law, they're going to say there's no evidence that the FBI forced Twitter to do that. They just
But
gave him they just
but
gave him
they're
these
speaking
suggestions.
from with a gun. Like, so if a guy with a gun has it pointed at you and says, "Yeah, I think you should give me your wallet."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm gonna give him my wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's implied threat, even if it's not directly spoken.
Mm-hmm.
That could be argued, but again, I just don't see who's going to stand up and actually take anybody to task on
Yeah.
this.
Well, like I said, as far as policy, I don't think anything's going to happen. And uh but I think the most positive thing that's going to come out of this is I think that conservatives and libertarian types, like more, I don't know if you want to call it right, or people who are closer to liberty minded people
Center
are,
right,
yeah, like I think,
like the Rand Pauls, the Thomas
yeah,
Masseys, that those type of Republicans.
yeah, I think they're going to look at this situation and be like, dude, these people fucking hate us, like they're out to get us,
Well, and they being the government,
yeah,
and I think that's where I would agree with you in waking up Republicans to say, this whole back the blue no matter what they do.
mm-hmm.
That's the FBI, that's the
Mm-hmm.
CIA. Those are just
Yeah,
or federal cops. So you're gonna keep cheering them on.
mm-hmm. So
So I can see that the blue pill of like take a real look behind the curtain.
yeah,
This is
I think for
the
the
government.
American right, this is going to be a huge, huge red pill. Like, I
But
don't think Sean Hannity can look at this and still be like, they are trusted American institutions and we need to protect them and keep them funded.
well, the thing is, I think, and I've already seen this from some of my right-leaning friends on Facebook, is this is even more reason why we need to get a Democrat or a Republican president in so that they can um, take back control of
Yeah.
the power of government.
And
It's like
it's like, guess what?
because they would do the same thing to the left that
Yeah.
the left has been doing to them, and
Well,
they would cheer that on.
that Tucker Carlson video that you sent me about JFK and the FBI, or was that the CIA?
No, JFK and the CIA, yeah.
Yeah. So, even Tucker Carlson was like, this is every CIA director going back to the
J.
Kennedy
Edgar Hoover.
administration, or yeah, to J. Edgar. Well, was Hoover CIA, or I thought he started the FBI?
He was FBI. That's true. I don't
Yeah,
remember when the CIA was started. It was probably after the FBI was
yeah.
started because I think that was more again the anti-communist.
Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, he was saying even this Republican uh, CIA director would have been in on this too.
Did you listen to the last part of the problem where Dave talks about Michael Knowles is
No,
wrong?
because I wanted to watch the Michael Knowles Timcast episodes first.
I couldn't.
It was hard. I
I
listened to the members
couldn't.
only one first, and then I started going into the regular podcast, and I think I have about 40 minutes left in it. But yeah, dude, Michael Knowles is a fucking moron.
But I don't know if he actually, maybe he does. He's convinced himself that,
Mm-hmm.
it's the libertarians' fault that the Republicans suck.
Mm-hmm.
And if we went back to the 1950s and we banned gay marriage, and we banned all the drugs, and we banned all the alcohol, and we enforced religious,
Prohibition after
virtues.
prohibition after prohibition, which we know totally works.
He sounds almost more authoritarian than the liberals that are in control right now. And it's like,
Well,
do you not hear yourself, dude?
Well, okay, so here's something that okay, I I am an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I have a soft spot for Christians. You know, I didn't used to, but now that I've gotten older, I do. You know, and there's something really really fucking scary about these Christian nationalist conservative types, where I'm like, dude, you are pushing to ruin Christianity, you know, because say whatever
it's using a boot,
it's using a boot to force Christianity onto people. But here's the
or
thing,
at least
like,
Christian values.
yeah, well, like, whenever it comes to people like Seamus Coughlin, who is great on Freedom Tunes, but as soon as you get talking to him about Christianity and like that mixed with policy, he goes down some really scary. Like, I don't care if somebody doesn't agree with gay marriage. I don't care, you know. I don't care if somebody has a problem with like interracial marriage or anything like that. I also don't have a problem with the inverse of those, you know. But it's like you have to separate your religious beliefs from policy. You know, you have to.
There is a reason why we had a separation of church and state.
Yes, and that's something
it's
that
not
Christian
in the
conservatives
founding.
don't fucking get.
No, they don't
get it at all.
It's
Because
all, they always argue our country was founded by Christians, and like it should be it's the Puritan worldview.
yeah, it's like okay, here's what Christians need to think about with that. First of all, that wall is not just there to protect the state from religion, as the hardcore atheists believe it is. It's to protect religion from the state. That's what that fucking wall is there for. It is to protect your religion. You know, so whether you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever the fuck you are, that wall is there so that the government cannot step inside your church, figuratively speaking.
Yep.
But no, they want to tear down that wall so that their religion can go and take over the state and enforce that religion onto everybody else. And this is what Christian conservatives have to fucking understand, is that what denomination, all right, what branch of Christianity is going to be the dominant one that the government forces onto you?
Right.
Is it going to be your Southern Baptist Church?
Or Catholicism?
Or is it going to be Catholic? Or is it going to be Methodist? Or is it going to be Nazarene or Wesleyan? Because there are distinct differences between all of those. Is it going to be Lutheran? Because I know that if you're a Wesleyan and a Catholic state is in power, that's not good for you. You know, if you are a Southern Baptist and a Nazarene, I'm getting really into the weeds, but like if you're a Southern Baptist who and a Nazarene or Wesleyan doctrine is forced by the state, you have a problem with that because they both have different ideas on how salvation works. You know, like obviously you invite Jesus into your heart and you are forgiven, but one believes that you do that one time and it covers you of all past sin and future sin. All right. The other one believes that if you ask Jesus into your heart, you accept him as your Lord and Savior, you're good. But if you sin again, you basically kick God out of your heart, you know? And so, and those are not small differences to these people, you know? And I grew up with these kind of people.
And no matter what religion the government picks as the state sanctioned religion, there's an offshoot podcast there for you, ladies and gentlemen, the state sanctioned religion.
Yeah.
They're going to bastardize it, so they are going to use it for their own benefit. Yep. So it's not going to be anything like you think it's going to be.
It's going to be Catholicism, but the version of Catholicism that protects the state.
Yep.
It's going to, if you're an anarchist, that's a sin. If you don't vote, that's a sin. You know,
if you find out to be gay, you know, we're going to castrate you or we're going to throw you in prison forever. Like, yeah. So it's very dangerous if they get, and that's where like a Michael Knowles or anybody from Like the more and more of the Daily Wire and the fact that that Jordan Peterson's been lost to the Zionists
Mm-hmm.
is just heart-wrenching
See,
because
I haven't
he
I haven't heard really much of what's been going on lately with Peterson since he got back on Twitter. But I was never a big follower of him anyway. You
I
know.
was, and I think that there was an opportunity. He did have some prominent libertarians on his podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard through the grapevine that we had opportunities to get him to speak at events, and we turned him down because he talks more life coaching than he does politics, and so we said no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Dave Rubin's another one, like I think ideologically, like him and Peterson probably are very aligned with libertarians,
Yeah.
but because we didn't make inroads, we didn't outreach, but again the Zionists did. Dave Rubin is basically his podcast has turned into a mouthpiece for the Republican Party. Like
Yeah.
it's just propaganda, Republican propaganda.
Yeah.
And so he went from leftist propaganda, then he went into the middle of the road, and he was neutral. He was saying he was a classical liberal,
Mm-hmm.
but really aligned with libertarian values. And then he got sucked in. Ben Shapiro got him, and then Trump Jr. And then he met Trump, and it's like we lost him. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, we didn't put forward any good candidates, like because he did have Joe Jorgensen on the podcast. He was like, "That's pathetic."
He
Um,
had the president of the college that I got expelled from on his show, Dr. Everett Piper. He was the president. I grew up with his son. Me and his son were
oh
really good
wow,
friends. And so then I'm scrolling through YouTube and I see Dr. Everett Piper. We always just called him Dr. Piper, and I was like, what the hell is Dr. Piper doing on the Rubin Report? What the hell is it? And so it
yeah.
was a pretty good episode. It was a little cringy because he almost immediately veers off of politics and goes into the thing that's going to save this nation is everybody accepting Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. I'm like, that's not really what you're in a gay man's house. Like,
Yeah.
let's stick to policy.
Yeah, stick to policy. But I mean, it's been interesting to kind of see how the Zionists have been trying to take over Christianity and carry water for Christian conservatives. And I've had this argument with people before. I'm like, the Zionists to Christians are no different than Muslims are to Christians.
Yeah.
Because Zionists believe that Jesus was just a prophet,
Yeah.
and Muslims believe that Jesus was just a prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So they believe that they are the religion, and that only they are going to heaven. That's what the Muslims believe. Like there really is very little difference, but yet we're going to say we're Judeo-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have those two together because they only believe in half the book.
Mm-hmm.
That just frustrates me to no end when this whole like alignment of Christianity and Judaism and the Zionists that really try to take all of it and speak for everyone when they clearly believe that they are the only ones going to heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and that Israel is America should be doing anything and everything whatever Israel wants they get. And the Ben Shapiro thing, like for years he was like free speech, and Ye shows up and he's like, whoa, we got to ban this guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't have it both ways, dude. Like, I'm done. There was times where, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of his pro-military stance, but that was all because, it was
He
pro-military.
said crazy shit on his PragerU video.
Yeah, it's all Israel pro-military.
Well, he basically fucking said how using some bullshit formula had determined that yes, all Muslims in the Middle East are radicalized and you should be afraid of them. It was just watching it, I was like, what the fuck? It was just so silly.
But that's the thing, is like he captures the right because he owns the libs and all of this bullshit, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, he makes them look stupid, but what he advocates for is dangerous.
Yeah. deadly.
he wants like a genocide, and he wants the Palestinians dead,
Mm-hmm.
and he,
Which
you know,
it's so sad that like that's what's impressive is Ben Shapiro's talks at these college campuses, because it's like, first of all, like he did these videos perfectly, because it's like anybody who has even cursory knowledge of like leftist politics, like they can fucking shoot down these arguments that these kids are giving them.
it
But
doesn't
that's the
take a
key word
lot.
there.
Yeah.
They're kids, you know? And so whenever you are a right winger and you're on the internet and they're showing something about trans people and you're like, that's bullshit, you know, and you hear all of these arguments from everybody on Facebook calling you a fucking transphobe and all these stuff and all these things, then you watch a video of Ben Shapiro arguing with somebody whose skull hasn't even finished fusing together yet about gender and pronouns and dumb shit like that, and you go, oh man, yeah, that's what I'm going to say next time, you know? And it makes you feel powerful because you're watching Ben Shapiro make a college child, by
Yeah,
almost every definition,
a
look like an
19-year-old.
idiot. Yeah, with
Yeah.
millions of, yeah, some dumbass 19-year-old look like an idiot, because guess what, 19-year-olds are idiots. I'll say that. But anyway, but if you really get into it, it's like he's not doing anything special. He's just, it's almost like he's just like bullying idiots.
It's clickbait.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
clickbait.
just generating clickbait.
Yeah,
And he's done it masterfully. I mean, look what he's done with the Daily Wire. But you need, you know, you need to peel back the curtain on that. I mean, that's propaganda, just like the left does. Like anytime, if you have a stance, but then you're willing to sacrifice that stance because someone on your team is saying something different, then you're no better than the left. And that's what's so frustrating to try to argue with Republicans, because they're always like, but the left, but Hillary, but and it's like you argue with the leftists and they're like, but Trump, but the radical right, and it's like you both are the same. You have no principles, none. You're fine with your team doing it, but you know the world's going to end if the other team does it. It's like, why? How about neither team should do it?
Yeah.
That's radical? No, that's principled.
Yeah.
And there's Libertarian Party is the only.
It's it's not only is it principled, it's adult. Like it's being a fucking adult, you know?
Yeah.
And, like having the wherewithal to like call out bullshit even when it's coming from your side, you know? And there's so few people on either side of the political aisle who do that, and they ostracize people who do that. Like Jimmy Dore is not loved by Democrats, you know?
Right.
He's got his anti-war following, but even people like Theo Bishop or Blake Masters, they're not exactly loved by Republicans, you know? I said Theo Bishop, I meant Theo Bishop.
Well, even like Tucker Carlson, I mean, I got to give him a lot of props. Like, you know, he is one of the only voices that calls out war for what it is.
Yeah.
Now he's probably more on the don't burn the state down if we just need the Republicans really need to take control. But I honestly, to watch some of these people's journeys, and like I know Russell Brand's another one that's been fascinating because he was a pro-socialist for the longest time.
He still is, I think.
He's still, I mean, the problem with so many people on the left is they recognize the corruption, and they recognize that we live in a fascist society. It's state and corporate power together to oppress any competition or any dissident voices. And that's fascism.
Yeah.
So as libertarians, we're saying if you take the power away from the central government, then it's going to make it almost impossible for that power to be purchased by the corporate entities. So we're saying we need to decentralize the power and pull it back to as local as possible. And there's no way corporate interests can be purchase influence in Washington. The left is saying we need communism. We need the government to own everything, and that eliminates the corporate, that eliminates fascism. And well, a part of that is true because, there's probably every big corporate presence out there would be 100% against communism because it would eliminate their profits because their business would be seized by the state. We've seen what communism does.
Yeah.
It eliminates competition, it eliminates choice, it eliminates dissent, it puts all the power into the government. And just because they're not influenced by outside forces of a capitalist nature,
Right.
they still have all the power.
Yeah.
And it's just I've been seeing a little bit with Russell Brand. He talks about decentralization in one episode, and then he talks about the federal government taking over the industry, like nationalizing in the next, like he wants nationalized healthcare, and he wants nationalized this, and he wants like total unionization. It's like that's not decentralization. So you can't have both. You can't say I want centralized power in the federal government, but I want decentralization. Like I really wish, and hopefully at some point, especially if Dave Smith will announce, a run for president, that he would have more opportunity to have those discussions with Russell Brand, with Tucker Carlson, with, people that they're close to realizing the libertarian viewpoint is the only correct viewpoint. They're close.
Yeah.
They just need to have that light bulb moment. And, it's people like Dave Smith. It's people, they need to have those conversations. And, here we go, full circle back to Twitter. We need free speech to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So that they're not censored, they're not taken down.
Well, I guess, you know what? Tying together nuclear holocaust and free speech, that's a really good point. We do need free speech so that we can have conversations about how horrible fucking nuclear holocaust is going to be. And so kind of trying to reel this back into Twitter. All these Twitter files have been dropping, exposing all these, under the table deals with the federal government and Twitter, which is at the very least the one that we have absolute confirmation of, but we all know what's happening with all the other social media sites, Facebook and YouTube, Facebook and YouTube for sure, and Google. But man, could you see the federal government censoring people talking about nuclear war, if we were really escalating with Russia and,
Oh, easy. I think if we get to the point where we have boots on the ground in Ukraine,
yeah,
you're going to see a lockdown like never before on free speech.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing more important than the narrative in war,
mm-hmm.
and fully controlling the narrative. And that goes all the way back to Lincoln.
Yep.
He imprisoned journalists left and right that made any points that disagreed with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I could even see using that to nationalize certain social media companies, to say we need to take them under the federal government to protect the citizens from disinformation, because this is such a important time. And there's always going to be that bullshit excuse. My problem is there's going to be over 50% of Americans that would cheer for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think we're doomed.
Yeah.
Because public, it's kind of, and I probably mentioned this before, it's that line in not that I like really any of the Star Wars prequels, but
they've grown up.
They were brilliant. The story, I love the story. The dialogue just so cringe. But when Padme was like, "This is how freedom dies with thunderous
Yeah.
applause. And that's just
Actually,
brilliant.
she specifically said liberty.
Liberty dies,
This is
yeah,
how
with
liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
thunderous applause. And it showed, I mean, it definitely was a great kind of a map to say this is this is how an empire is created and takes control and eliminates um not that I'm a big fan of democracy, but it eliminates anybody else's say. It's a full totalitarian regime, and we're living through that. I mean, we're definitely on that verge of, I don't know if it'll be, I mean, how close can you get with it to be a dictatorship when you only have two parties and only two parties are allowed to participate? It's literally one party away from a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever think, like, maybe this is me being like way too cynical, and this going off topic, but do you ever wonder? I know I've asked you before. Like, do you ever feel like we're going through like a moment in time that's going to be considered like historical? And you've said that you have, but do you sort of the extreme version of that is? Do you ever feel like this is what's ramping up to like the end of the world, like
Hmm.
like nuclear war? I mean, nuclear holocaust, that would be the end of the world. Like nobody's surviving that. You know.
There's only a few people. Like, again, if you're maybe in a submarine
Mm-hmm.
and you can be beneath the waves.
Well, the
I
president
think
too. He's gonna
yep, there
survive.
will be some bunkers. There'll
Mm-hmm.
be um I don't know if you've watched any of the Ancient Apocalypse, I think on Netflix. I think it's Ancient Apocalypse.
I
So
saw
the
Joe Rogan's in it, isn't
yep, he's in it,
he?
and
I saw a trailer for it.
he's had the presenter um on his podcast a couple times. But his hypothesis is that there was an advanced civilization before the Great Flood. And he's pretty much admitted, because almost every culture in the world has a story about a great flood, which is crazy. I mean, that's a Bible story, and we're like, oh, Noah and the Great Flood, and it's like, oh, but every, like, even indigenous tribes in Africa have a story of the Great Flood, and but he was basically saying that, like, we had a very advanced civilization that got wiped out because of the flood, and he's like, how many times has that occurred over history? Because we always kind of tried, believe that it was we started with Neanderthals and they were hunter gatherers. And then, they developed like farming techniques. And then they started civilization after the Ice Age and the Bronze Age and all of this stuff. And every time he tries to point something out or he makes a discovery, and he gets slammed by the experts, quote unquote, quote, that are saying you're a crazy person and you're leading people astray. And what's next? People are going to second guess elections. Like, you can't you can't push back against the narrative. You cannot question the narrative, whether it's history, whether it's politics. What does it matter? Because there is vested interest in keeping the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
because it keeps people in power and it keeps people in control. And like, it is really crazy to see. I mean, the Netflix series has done extremely well,
Yeah.
and he has been bastardized through every news and mainstream, like, how dare you question these things? But it's just been fascinating to think, like, are we at that edge again, where we've advanced to a certain point and we're going to destroy
Yeah.
ourselves?
I,
Whether
I feel like this is just like I really feel like this is the test of like the longevity of a species. Like, can you get to the point where we are as advanced as we are now? You know, because I mean, we like I can pick up my phone and use a computer chip with my face and talk to somebody on the opposite end of the planet. Like, our technology is wild. But like, do civilizations get to this point where they have to choose between nuclear annihilation and non-intervention, and then
Well,
you
can you
think,
think? So, like in this example, let's say tomorrow, nuclear holocaust, 90% of the world, 95% of the world's wiped off the face of the earth.
mm-hmm,
You have some people in submarines, you have some people in bunkers, but that's it. So, after the nuclear winter, these people have procreated, they survive, and they start repopulating the planet. How much of civilization would have totally been lost? Like, those people aren't going to know how to build skyscrapers. They're not going to know how to, exactly what the story was with the Civil War. Like, that's just a story that they've been told through a couple generations. So we could easily duplicate what happened before the Great Flood.
mm-hmm.
And it could be just, in another 1,000 years,
I mean,
people could be
like,
talking about us like, no, that couldn't have happened.
how do they explain like where the water? Like, are we talking about like a worldwide flood?
Yeah, if
But
if
like,
you're if you're talking about
how would that work?
so those who are coming from more of an atheist perspective is that a meteor or a shower of meteors like hit the earth, warmed everything up, which melted the polar ice caps,
Mm-hmm.
and that all of that water, and you can actually see, I mean, it's fascinating if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but you can see water damage in Africa in the desert
Mm-hmm.
because, like, from satellite viewpoints, it looks like an erosion of water had ripped through certain low areas in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just it is really crazy, but there's always, like, I think, I don't remember if he talks about it or if this was a YouTube video because I've really gone down this rabbit hole, but they're talking about there is something called the Eye of the Sahara, which
Mm-hmm.
is in Africa, but it looks from space exactly like Plato described Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
like exactly how Plato described Atlantis. And
It was the middle of the Sahara.
it's not in the middle. It's towards the coastline, but it would have been wiped out in a great flood
Mm-hmm.
very easily. And and this could have been before like a worldwide flood, but it could have like a precursor to it because Plato actually describes his somebody he knew actually went to Atlantis, and he came back with detailed description of what the city looked like, how it was constructed, some of the technology that was so advanced that it was hard to describe. I mean, it is crazy, but it's if you do look at it as in there was a advanced civilization and then a worldwide catastrophe that wiped out 90% of the world population, which really reset everything. Well, during that time of turbulence, whether the world was underwater or the water froze, and was it took hundreds of years to come get back to the land masses we see today, then the stories of that pre-civilization or that advanced civilization, it would have been told in just like bedtime stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we read or we hear about these rumors, it's just been something that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. But we could see, like I said, if we have a nuclear holocaust and only 5% of the world's population survives it, they're not going to remember how to build skyscrapers. They're not going to remember how to irrigate, massive, massive areas of land to be able to produce, a huge harvest of corn. They're not going to remember, or they're just never going to know because they're a very small subset of the population,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to have to relearn everything all over again. So it's a fascinating kind of like a study of the what if.
Yeah. I just thinking about a world flood. I just there's no possible way because there's not enough water to cover the entire surface. Like you take all the clouds, all the oceans, the ice caps, even the groundwater. There's not enough to cover the surface of the Earth.
And I don't know if they're saying like every part of the Earth was
But
underwater.
but like maybe like parts of Africa were
70%.
flooded.
He talks about some of the channels that in
the other thing is like, and this has nothing to do with libertarianism. This is just me being high and curious. But
you gotta watch the series.
I really
it
do.
will
I really want to.
It will send you down some rabbit holes.
Yeah, I really want to see it because this is interesting. But I'm like, we have fossils of dinosaurs that lived 65 million years ago. It this advanced civilization would have, like, dinosaurs would have predated them by a while. They maybe predate us by 3 or 400,000
maybe
years.
this civilization harnessed and used dinosaurs, because there's this talk about, and even some of the pictures of the Great Pyramids, especially on the inside,
we'd have
the
so
blocks,
evidence,
like how did they put these blocks into place is just mind boggling. And the alignment with the stars on so many of these ancient ruins, or the alignment with the sun and how it rises and sets, is so precise.
Yeah.
Like, they had to know a lot more than we think that they know. And to put these structures in place, they had to have technologies that we aren't even aware of to be able to like put these together. And it's there's a lot of what ifs, because we don't have, it's not clear. But again, if 90% of the Earth was underwater, a lot of what was there would have been washed away. And it's interesting. I think it's off the coast of Florida in the Bahamas. There is an underground, it almost looks like a road. And there are rocks that are actually, they have support underneath them to make sure that they're level. And these are underwater. And Netflix spent some money because they digitally reconstructed a lot of things to say, if the water level was here, and if this and this and this is what it would look like. Yeah, traditional scientists and archaeologists are like, it's a natural formation. And you're like, no, it's not. There's no way that's natural. Like,
I really want to watch this because, like, here's the thing. Like, I'll never turn a blind eye to a conspiracy theory. Like if you come to me with some like flat Earth or hollow Earth bullshit like that, like, I'm gonna be like, okay, I will entertain this. But I can tell you right now, that's a stupid fucking conspiracy theory.
Well, you have to look into what is the motive. Like, why would the entire world go along with a round Earth and try to hide the fact that it's a flat Earth?
Yeah.
Like, what's the motivation in that?
What's the motivation?
Like, yeah, that's how I judge every conspiracy theory. Like, does the motivation make sense?
Yeah. Who's getting paid? Like, who makes the most amount of money by being the only person who knows that the Earth is actually flat and suppressing all that information everywhere else? How the fuck do you generate income withholding that information?
Yeah, what's the purpose behind it? And I just don't see it. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories that you could completely write off because there is no obvious motivation for the lie. I mean, but there's a lot that is clearly there's motivation for the lie. And so maybe that doesn't mean that the whole conspiracy theory is true, but the fact that sometimes when there is such a huge reaction to suppressing it, you're like, if it was 100% false, why is there such a anti or a negative reaction to it that's clearly coordinated to suppress it? That, to me, that gives credence to it. Almost like the photo of Elon Musk with Ghislaine Maxwell. It's like, if there's such an attempt at hiding it, then some of it has to be true. So the show on Netflix is called Ancient Apocalypse.
All right, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna try to watch it this week, and I can talk, like, do a deep dive on it next week.
Oh, let's do it on a locals only episode. We'll do like a deep
Yes.
dive
Oh, dude,
on
that'd be perfect for locals.
ancient conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So Graham Hancock is the narrator, and he's
I
been
call him Grandcock. Yeah.
Graham Cock, not Graham Cracker, but Graham Cock. Um, he's 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 very jaded, and I think well understandably because he's been so persecuted by the mainstream for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So you do get a flavor of that, but at the same time he is very curious, and it's fascinating because he never claims to have all the answers. A lot of times people try to paint him as it's the aliens that made that, and he doesn't mention the aliens at all. So he's not coming across like he has all the answers, but he's basically saying the way what we've been sold as the truth is not the truth.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we tie that back to Twitter.
Well, you know,
But yeah,
if
that'd
the
be a fun
gay
episode.
Democrats had their way,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't be able to talk about, ancient civilizations and apocalypse.
It always goes back
like
to the
that.
homos, like whether they're dolphins, whether they're Nazis, whether they're leftists. It's the homos'
It's
fault.
actually, what, the gay agenda, I'm fine with that. Whatever, have your gay agenda. The new thing is the trans agenda, or the drag queen agenda.
I think it's more of the you can choose your gender agenda,
which is hilarious. Just like you can
which
choose
is
to be gay, right?
crazy. Did you see that one of Dave Chappelle when he was talking about what if I identified as a Chinese man, or like, it's because if you accept one, you've got to accept the other. Otherwise, you look like a hypocrite. So yeah, it was very fun.
Whenever I explain stuff to my kids, I have a very, very hard line rule with how I raise my kids. And that is, whenever it comes to personal beliefs, those are things that I firmly believe I want my kids to come by those naturally and organically,
With the knowledge that a lot of it is going to be based on how you talk and how you portray certain things, right? Because
okay,
even living with somebody, whether it's your parents or not, they're going to have some influence on you.
Well, yeah, but I I'm an atheist. I'm a libertarian. I don't believe that there's a God. Blah blah blah. I've never once told my kids there is no God, not once. Even when I was at my most militant douchebag atheist, even at my height, I was like, I've never told my kids that there's no God, because I'm like, that is something that they need to discover for themselves. And so the responsibility that puts on my shoulders is, okay, I have to equip them with the best tools that I can pass on. And those tools being things like skepticism. Skepticism is extremely important in all walks of life, not just religion, but with politics, with your job, skepticism is crucial,
Maybe this is a whole nother podcast, but how do you install a skeptic? How do you not install, but how do you curate a skeptic mindset in young people? Because I definitely want to do that with my my kids, and it would I've kind of made it all about choice and consequence. Like life is full of choices, but there's always going to be a consequence to every choice. So I've really tried to push that with them, especially like, hey, you can clean your room, and that means we're going to go out to dinner. If you don't clean your room, we're going to have leftovers for lunch. You pick.
Yeah.
So like giving them choice, but giving them a clear cut consequence of the choice.
Okay, so what you just did is you didn't say you are going to do this and we are going to have X for dinner. You said these are your choices.
Right.
She can either choose to get the easy, quick, uh, you know, oh, what's the right word that I'm like instant satisfaction
Hmm.
thing, or she can put in the effort and get a much better result.
Right.
Like you taught her that value without telling her that she has to have that value. She learned
So do
that
you think that
organically, you
that
know?
kind of aligns with like teaching them to be skeptic of
Yes.
or like second guess everything?
Not second guess everything. Ask for evidence, you know? And because like there's a level of skepticism that uh and I guess it's going to be different for everybody, but there's like a line a personal line that you have to draw, because if you want to get really into like what's the evidence that I have that there is a light in this garage? Well, I can see a light, but like how can I trust my eyes? And so like you can go down rabbit holes to where you're like nothing is real and there's no such thing as a universe, and um existence isn't a thing. Like that's when you get into like, okay, these are kind of dumb, bizarre, nonsensical concepts when you get too deep into skepticism. you know when you demand evidence, there has to be a level where you stop and you go, okay, well, I'm just going to assume the rest of this is legit.
It's
you know
almost like faith eventually comes into play.
yeah,
Like
and
I
it
can't
has
see
to.
the satellite,
Mm-hmm.
but I know it's there. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to believe,
Yeah.
I have to, like, I can't touch it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't see it. So I have to have faith that it's there because of the fact my phone
Yeah.
works.
And whether you want to call it faith or you make a prediction or you um
It's an assumption
or an assumption, yeah.
based on some like observable
Yeah,
proof or truth.
eventually it gets to the point where you're like, this is all subjective from here all out, or from here on out.
What do you think about like for school? Because that's a big one that I'm worried about, especially with teachers pushing a narrative, whatever that narrative may be. Like I've definitely been very because I know that my kid's mom is going to be like, you need to get good grades because that reflects on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a narcissist, it always comes back to me,
Mm-hmm.
where I don't give a shit about their grades.
Yeah.
And I just want them to do their best.
Mm-hmm.
And if things don't pan out, oh well, you tried and
Yeah.
you did your best.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've tried to install that,
Well,
but
and
I
that's the
haven't
cool
gotten
that's the cool
to
thing
like
is like,
question things.
yeah, well, that it's cool the way that you look at that, because even if they do, quote unquote fail and have to drop out of high school or something like that, like, your daughters, like, they're not stupid.
Right. That
I've met
doesn't
them.
make
They're not dumb. Like, they'll
that
be
doesn't
fine. They
make
don't
them
have to go to college.
right. That doesn't make them any less smart in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it may make them more smart because they said this is stupid. Fuck that. I'm not putting my time and effort into it
Yeah.
because it doesn't add value and I know it won't add value.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it's a very interesting like 'cause that's one thing I don't, and maybe there are libertarian parenting podcasts out there. But like how do you install like liberty principles without pushing a message? But to your point, I think that's literally the root of it is question. Ask questions. Don't just believe. Because I know for myself, and I think we're probably very similar, where our parents were just obey. Do what you're told.
Mm-hmm.
You're the
Don't ask
child. I'm the
questions.
adult. Don't ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
Yeah.
There was no like option. And if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't do it, there would be capital punishment.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, like with my kids, like if I'm like, okay, the dishes need to be done, or like your room needs to be cleaned or something like that, like, shit, I forgot the point I was gonna make with this.
You're not necessarily always giving them a choice.
No, but like, I try to present it that way, and it's kind of like whenever I was going to therapy, my therapist was like, you kind of have to manipulate your kids a little bit, and
With a like a reward.
yeah,
Oh, I sounded like oh, Django Unchained. What he's like,
reward.
like a reward.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a Austrian accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because there are times. So, for example, my girls are very eclectic when it comes to how they dress, especially my oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she'll wear big UGG boots in the middle of summer because she likes the UGG boots, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt. You look
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like, there's a time and a place to wear those boots, but it's not right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the middle of winter, she's wearing cowboy boots with no socks. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? There's no tread on the bottom of those boots, and
Yeah.
you don't even have socks on.
Yeah.
Like, you, you need to go back and reevaluate your choices because I don't agree with them. Like, so it's like it's hard sometimes where you're just like, you look stupid. I don't want to be seen in public with you because people would be like, what the hell
Yeah.
are you letting your kids wear?
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be free enough and be creative enough, but at the same time be like, what is appropriate and what's not
Mm-hmm.
appropriate when you go out in public.
Well, kind of bringing it back to skepticism, like one of the things, one of the huge values I see in it is that it's when I taught my kids to ask for evidence and to consider that evidence and look at that evidence, and is it good evidence, like is this convincing and stuff like that, like
So you've kind of pushed that to say ask for evidence.
ask for not just ask for demand evidence,
Okay.
and so I would be like, if one of your classmates walked up to you and said I can fly, then your first thing should be like, no
Prove
you
it.
can't, prove it, you know like I'm not going to believe that until I see the evidence, and by teaching them that, I have assured, like I've accepted the fact that if as long as I teach them those principles, then wherever they land in life, which is already different than me, um, like I know that they will have arrived at that point in their life or at that set of beliefs logically and rationally and with evidence, you know?
Yeah.
And
No, I
so,
like that. It's something I've not really thought about. I mean, I've thought about like having a question, always questioning
mhm,
authority,
yeah. Well, like
but I've not been able
with
to
my oldest
distill
son,
it.
with my oldest son, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey dad, uh I'm a Christian." And I was like, "Okay, all right, that's cool." I was like, "That's really cool. Tell me about that. Like how did you get there, And I know because I try to bullshit my kids all the time, it never works, And it's because like I taught them to ask for evidence. I taught them to smell out bullshit, you know? And so if my oldest son, who is he's autistic, he takes everything literally. If my oldest son uh comes up to me and has a different set of beliefs than I do, I know he got there using his brain and being rational and using logic, you know? And so if he believes in God and I don't, that maybe that says something about the existence of God, you know?
It maybe it says something about that you've succeeded at parenting
Right.
because
Because he's his own
he's his
independent
own
person.
person,
Yeah.
right? To me, that is a success as a
Mm-hmm.
parent. I think that, there may be parents out there that are like, I want a copy of myself, a
Yeah.
cookie cutter version of me. I want you to go to nursing school, or I
Mm-hmm.
want you to become a doctor, or, and I will do everything I can to make you feel stupid if you don't go the way I want you to go.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of parents out there that don't, I mean, they do that and without even realizing it. So I think we both have
Like
some
they
success
don't they
stories.
don't respect that their kid is an individual,
Right.
and that's like, as a staunch individualist, like that's something that I'm really really proud of with my boys, is that each one of them is different than the other one, and they're way different than me, and they're way different than their mom. They're their own unique people, and I want to encourage that, you know.
How do you, so for example, my youngest is always kind of looking at my oldest and copycatting. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that with my brother. I remember being irritated with that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to push her to say, no, you just can't have that because your sister has that. And she goes, no, no, I want it because I want it. I'm like, you have you had that with your boys as far as like the copycat syndrome of I just want to do what they do,
Oh
or
yeah.
are
Oh yeah.
okay?
With all three of them.
How do
And
you combat that, or do you address it at all?
no, because I mean the way I say it, like, it would happen a lot with food. Not so much anymore because my middle son is really developing into his own. But my oldest son is a very picky eater, and my middle son would see my oldest son being picky, and so then he would just pick whatever the oldest picked, you know.
Right.
And so, if my oldest was like, I don't like mac and cheese, which if he didn't like mac and cheese, I'd throw him out of my house. That's unacceptable. I love
He'd
mac and
starve to
cheese.
death.
Yeah. He can go eat dog food outside for all I
You
care.
can go eat crickets.
But anyway, if my oldest was like, I don't like mayonnaise or whatever, my middle son would immediately be like, oh yeah, me neither. And it's because he's looking at his big brother and he's saying like, my big brother is the cool guy here,
Right.
and so I want to do what the cool guy does.
Because I want to be cool too.
Yeah. And I mean that's all normal, a normal part of
Sibling
developing
sibling behavior, yeah.
sibling behavior, and it's like they're developing by watching what other people do.
Right.
You know.
And that's my fear is that my youngest is going to be more of a follower. And because I think part of it is she's naturally inclined to be a follower,
Mm-hmm.
and my oldest is very independent. She's been independent since she was born.
Yeah.
Like
Well, like
she literally
if she's
came out of the
naturally a
womb and was like looking around and like if she could have opened her mouth, she would have asked for everybody's name in the room.
yeah.
Like she didn't cry. She was just like, "What's going on with you all?"
Yeah.
And was almost never a baby. She
Mm-hmm.
was always pushing, pushing, pushing.
Yeah.
But my youngest, I'm just nervous that she's going to be very susceptible to peer pressure.
Mm-hmm. So
So
like
I
so like with that, I think if she's just naturally a follower, then she's just always going to be naturally a follower. But the things that you can plant within her are who to follow and when to walk away. Who do you give your support to? Who do you throw your weight behind? Because that can be really important too. And whether it's in a relationship, if she gets married and she winds up being more of like a submissive type person than the domineering one in the relationship, then that's okay. But like, don't be submissive to like a piece of shit. You know,
well, that's my fear, especially with girls, is like I
but
could see her
that's
being manipulated by a boy that says, you know what, everybody else is doing this. Why aren't you?
yeah. Well, and that's the part that you focus on,
Right.
because if she's just naturally, and I'm not saying that she is, it might all just be a phase, because my middle son, uh, is not a follower whatsoever. He does his own thing. But when he was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, he was doing everything his older brother did. And now those two could not be any more different. They call out each other's differences like, you know,
Yeah,
it's hard to talk
I'm
this way
definitely
without dropping names.
I'm definitely, I hope we get to that point, and I do kind of push her when she just says whatever my sister wants, or like, you know what, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want?
Yeah.
And even to the point of sometimes saying, you know what, your sister's going to hang out with grandma, or you're going to spend the night over with your aunt, and then the other one is going to do something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Like having I think that's important too, is having their own space and their own ability to make the decisions on their own, because there's, the sister isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just fascinating to look at things, and it'd be interesting to have more libertarian parents on to see, do you raise your kids with a libertarian mindset, or is that not a focus for you? is that's just you, and you're just going to let your kid be whatever they're going to be.
Yeah.
Or maybe you are a control freak helicopter parent, but then preach individualism as an adult.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are libertarian parents out there that are like that.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't see it, or maybe they feel like it's their job to dictate terms to their children because that's their job as a parent. And then when they're old enough, then they can be an individual. But until then, I'm not allowing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because I mean, for anybody listening, like post a comment if you know of a podcast that is like a libertarian podcast that discusses like raising kids, because I'd be fascinated to tune into that, because like how do we translate our beliefs
Dude,
to our kids
guests too,
without enforcing it.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting. Man, that would be really interesting. Libertarian parenting.
Yeah, maybe we do an offshoot podcast and it's just focused on raising kids, because our kids are very similar in age.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
I mean, I've got girls, you've got boys, but
what if we started another podcast? You know what? We'll talk about this after the show. I think that's a really good idea. But like,
but again, those who are listening, like, do you want to hear? I mean, that's why I think I'm asking, like, if there isn't anything like this out there, then I think that's because I've already learned something today from you sharing, and I think we together can also import our missteps or our successes with those out there who are freedom loving, independent libertarians. So I mean, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, I've heard this, I know a podcast like this, you should check them out. Or be like, no, I would love it if you guys went down this rabbit hole on a regular basis and talked parenting from a libertarian perspective, because our kids are young enough that we probably have 10 years that we could talk about this kind of stuff as they continue to grow up, and they're very similar in ages,
and you know what,
from very different perspectives.
Well, that's where the focus needs to be. It needs to be on parenting, because we're raising the next generation. And we need to raise a strong liberty-minded generation. So maybe, oh man, all right, you and I have to finish this after the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're at almost 2 hours, so we both knew that this was going to be a long podcast,
and it went off the fucking rails, man.
We always kind of go down different rabbit holes, so I hopefully those listening appreciate our scatterbrained rants, because they do take us. I enjoy it, so I'm hoping other people are out there that enjoy
it. There was one point in time where I would have thought that was like a bad thing, that we veer off on like a million different topics, but I'm like
unprofessional.
Like I would think it was unprofessional, but those are the most fun. Those are really the most fun conversations, because it's like, what the hell are we going to wind up talking about?
Right.
And like, we don't have to so rigidly stick to one topic all the time. We can spend 20 minutes on Twitter like we did, now, and then just have fun and talk about fucking whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely hit Twitter. We definitely hit nuclear war. We hit ancient apocalypse, a little bit of Zionism with Christianity, and then parenting. So, I mean, what is that? 5 topics in 2 hours? That's probably
it. What the fuck are we even going to title this?
It's going to be a weird title. Can't be any more weird than our last one. I mean,
dude,
gay Nazi dolphins.
That's gotta be my favorite title.
So good. So good.
Favorite or besides hacky sacking Hitler.
Yeah, I think they're both brilliant. We got to make t-shirts somehow of both of them. But yeah, but this is you know what? This is the kind of that long form
with a
with the dolphin
whore.
With a Zionist dolphin.
Dude, talk about the most offensive t-shirt ever.
Yeah, we on this. We might actually get banned from YouTube if, like, if our audience continues to grow, then that's maybe another conversation about like having a plan B at Rumble.
Yeah.
But where was I
Dude,
going
we
with
got to
that?
get this T-shirt made.
Yeah,
Hitler
yeah,
hacky
Hitler and a
sacking with a
dolphin.
Nazi dolphin whore, hacky sacking with a Zionist.
How
All
do
on the
how
same
do you make
T-shirt.
a dolphin look like a whore?
You put it in dolphin lingerie.
Oh,
Like a
I
bra.
might have to.
A
I
bra
might have to get
and
creative
fishnets.
tonight and see what I can come up with in the old Photoshop
Dude,
or like a meme generator.
dude.
I think I've got my work cut out for me.
Ben, there's only one way to turn a dolphin into a whore. You make it wear fishnet.
I thought you were gonna say put it upside down. Oh,
Oh
oh,
man. All right.
glad we could end on a laugh.
Yeah. I honestly feel like this is part 2 of last week's episode,
Yeah, it kind of is.
you know.
But oh, what I was gonna say is it's kind of how the conversations like the Joe Rogan experience. Like
Yeah.
they really never like go
Him and
in with
Chris
anything.
Pratt talked about hunting. You
What
know?
he had Chris Pratt on?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
they
gotta
talked
watch that.
it was a while ago. And
Really?
yeah, they just talked about like bow hunting the whole time and
Because
eating
he's
elk.
mentioned hanging out with Chris Pratt and what a great guy he is, but I
Mhm.
always kind of wondered if he was ever going to be on the show. So yeah, I
For
got to check that
listeners,
out.
I'm really sorry to scratch my beard into the microphone. That's not a shitty ASMR thing. My bad. I hope you can forgive me for that because I finished doing that. I was
let's
like,
not
fuck, everybody heard that.
let's not delve into the world of ASMR. Like some of that stuff, like I'm like,
Creepy as
it's
fuck.
oh, well, like Two Bears One Cave when they talk about some of that stuff, and I'm like, I can't take it. Like I don't know if it's like a sensory overload for me, but like the whole
It's the
like the
most disgusting sounds.
it's
Turned up
just
to
like
11.
I can't do it. Like the fact that some people get off on that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
it's
and I'm
gross.
like, I got to turn it off. I got to turn it off. Like I
Yeah,
can't.
because when they're like,
Yeah.
ugh, stop. What the
Ugh,
fuck are you doing?
gross.
Yeah.
Like, are you talking or fingering your crotch? Like, either way, if you're talking out of your crotch and playing with it at the same time, like that, congrats on
You're
you
from
for doing
Thailand,
that.
I can
But
tell you
like,
that.
I don't want anything to do with that. Ugh, I'm getting like creeped out just thinking about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, why don't we go ahead and wrap this up, Ben? Man.
Check out. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I did release some new designs and apparel
Ooh.
on our shop. So check it out. There's new. I did put out a We Love the State military badge.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually combined it with oh, I can't remember his name, but it's basically badges from World War II. So
Mm-hmm.
really cool design, and we've got it on some t-shirts and sweatshirts. So check that out. I actually got a request today from somebody at work that said, "What about coffee mugs? I really would love to buy a We Love the State coffee mug."
Yes.
So I'm like, all right,
I need
we
one.
got to do that.
So then we can turn this into a morning show. And then we have our cups of coffee. That's
Can you imagine this as a morning show? Like it's
Hey,
one
good
thing.
morning.
It's one thing for people to listen to us on the way home from work. Yeah, I think it's a totally different audience that is driving to work that was like, yeah, I'm going to tune into We Love the State because I want to hear about gay dolphins and Hitler.
Well, okay, so for those of you listening, tweet at us or post on the Facebook page or Instagram or whatever it is. Let us know where you listen to We Love the State. You know?
Yeah,
What is it that you're doing?
I love the feedback.
Yeah.
Like I really appreciate the dynamic of getting like a response.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as much as I love just shooting the shit with you, and I think we have a great time doing it, like let us know that you're enjoying it too.
Yeah.
So I think, our numbers continue to grow, which is awesome. And, we're looking at getting more guests back on, but at the same time, like even when we don't have guests,
Yeah.
a 2-hour podcast goes by like so fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, super cool.
All right. Well, hey, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on TikTok at Andy_Coons. I'm sorry, at Andy Coons, no underscore, Koons. If you want to follow me on Twitter, which is where I say all the things that'll get me kicked off of TikTok, except I don't know about that anymore because Elon Musk stepped down, and who the fuck knows who's taking over. So maybe that won't last very long. We're also on Instagram. We have a Facebook page called We Love the State. It's followed by the Libertarian National Party, so if you're cool, you'll follow us too.
Yeah, check out the website, welovethestate.com. And We Love the State on Instagram. We Love the State on Facebook. And, drumroll please, I am on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
So I am the same as I am on Instagram. So picture this 1979. A lot of what I post on Twitter comes from Instagram, which is pretty cool that there's some integration there.
Yeah.
But yeah, hit me up.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Happy holidays.
Oh, yes. Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year.
No, not that one.
Oh. Well, fuck your New Year. Peace.